One of the biggest problems I see with shoulder rehabilitation isn't that people don't get out of pain. Most of them do. The problem is that they don't quite get back to doing the things that they actually wanted to do. They go play a round of golf, start throwing the ball to their kid, or even working out. But soon enough, they're right back to where they started. And once I realized this, my mindset completely changed about shoulder rehabilitation. I stopped measuring people's success based on whether their pain just calmed down for a little bit, and rather whether they were actually living the life confidently that they wanted. Here's the problem that nobody talks about. Standard rehabilitation and physical therapy is designed to just get you out of pain and get you back to doing some daily activities like taking care of yourself, taking a shower, eating, and etc. The other goal that you have is completely different. That doesn't account for somebody who wants to drive a ball 300 yards and at the golf course, throw a football to their kid, or bench press their body weight for reps. Now, these have two completely different goals and therefore require two completely different approaches. You see, traditional therapy focuses on low-level activities to get you out of pain and build that daily function, while the other approach has to have immense amounts of strength, range of motion, coordination, all combined in one to be able to do those things without having pain and having that high level of function. This became the biggest thing that changed my mindset around shoulder rehabilitation. I spent so many years inside of clinics watching clients do these low-level banded exercises and never getting progressed to get back to doing the things that they wanted to, where they were left with this massive gap. That gap being the difference between them being able to be out of pain and them being able to do the things that they actually wanted to do. Now, physical therapy and pain reduction is an important first step. In the beginning, your shoulder can be in a lot of pain, whether you've just gone through a surgery or had an injury or things have just crept up over time. Getting out of pain is an important step of the process, but it's not the final stage. And so figuring out how to go from A to B, going from out of pain to actually bench pressing for reps to hitting a golf ball at the course and throwing a ball to your kid is the gap that needs to be filled. And that's what completely changed my mindset around shoulder rehabilitation. I had my own shoulder injuries. I was a football player most of my life and dedicated myself to the sport. However, traumatically, I had a shoulder dislocation that caused major trauma and damage to my shoulder that completely changed my own mindset about shoulder rehabilitation. Football meant the world to me. It was something I was genuinely gifted at and enjoyed doing. And when the shoulder injury came about, it completely set back my goals, my outlook on life, and my general well-being. It led me down the path of deeply needing to understand the shoulder function, the anatomy, and whether or not I would eventually need a surgery to repair the damages that were completed. After much trial and tribulation, I was eventually left with getting the shoulder surgery that left me in a completely different state of range of motion, strength, and ability that I had to rebuild back from. However, as I was rebuilding back from that process, and even prior to my surgery, when I was in these different physical therapy clinics, I quickly realized that there was a huge gap and that I was a collegiate level athlete. And I'm sitting there doing banded exercises next to, somebody's grandma. It didn't feel quite right to me. I didn't feel like that was going to get me to the goals that I had for myself. And the goals I had for myself was to compete in football, which I knew I needed to be able to bench press, to hit, to throw, to catch, a lot of intense movements. And I just never felt like physical therapy was going to get me to that point, and it didn't. And that's what ultimately led me to go down my path of becoming a physical therapist, deeply understanding the shoulder anatomy, physiology, and pain so that I can help not only rebuild my own shoulder, but teach and guide others how to do the same. And so ultimately, after having my own shoulder injuries, I decided to become a physical therapist. I was really wanting to deeply understand the human anatomy and physiology, especially with how it related to the shoulder. I quickly realized that my experience wasn't something that I only had myself, but rather a lot of other people were having that same experience as well. People were coming in with complaints of shoulder pain that they couldn't do the things they wanted to do. And the physical therapist would do a decent job of getting them out of shoulder pain and back to daily function, but there was always that gap of them wanting to get back to doing certain things that they weren't able to do. And so what I started to notice is that people were struggling with the same issue that I had myself, that they can get out of pain, but they couldn't go back to playing football, to hitting a golf ball, to bench pressing, and things of that nature. And so I started to see as well that people's beliefs were just as limiting as the injuries themselves. I would hear things like, my shoulder is unstable, my shoulder is arthritic, it's never going to be the same. I probably should just avoid doing the things that I want to do. And those beliefs in themselves became self-limiting, because if someone doesn't believe that their shoulder is ever going to be capable of doing things they want to do, it's unlikely that they're going to get there. And the only way to dispel those beliefs is to slowly teach and coach somebody about how they can get closer and closer to that goal until ultimately, after a few weeks or months, they're doing the thing that they thought they could never do. And so I realized that the problem wasn't just unique to me, but that there was other people that were experiencing that same issue as well. Now, here's the client I saw that was really the turning point for me. I had a client named Steven that I was coaching online, and Steven had seen various physical therapists in his lifetime. He'd worked as a mechanic, a lot of hard manual labor, and he was really struggling with shoulder pain that was limiting him from his work and his abilities outside of work as well. And he had told me in the beginning that even through seeing all these physical therapists, he never really got too far with things. Maybe got out of pain a little bit, but never was anything that was memorable, at least. And so it was just maybe 3 weeks when working together, and Steven had reached out to me and said, John, how are you doing this? How am I out of pain? My shoulder function is improving. I can lift my arm overhead. My neck isn't hurting. How are you doing all of this? Because I've seen PTs throughout my whole life in person and they can never do this. And you saw me online and somehow I'm feeling so much better. And this really just confirmed to me that there's a lot of people like Steven that are probably going through the same thing. And this isn't to compare online versus in person, because both are good choices. It's rather that a different approach is needed to get the results, and that Steven was never challenged in the ways that he needed to be in order to break through this plateau that he's been stuck in for a decade. And so I realized that Steven wasn't an exception, but rather he was an example of the pattern that I've been seeing for many years now. And so that's why I ultimately decided to create my own practice, Kinesthetic Performance, is because I was essentially talking about these issues, posting online, teaching others how to do this in the clinics that I was working at. And I decided that ultimately I wanted the full control over how somebody's assessed, coached, progress, and gets back to their goals. And so Kinesthetic Performance wasn't just created because I wanted my own business, but it was built around the standard of one simple thing: get people back to doing the things they actually want to do. And so Kinesthetic Performance was created to fill that gap that traditional physical therapy or training leaves on the table, to actually getting people back to things they want to do. And so if you've spent months or even years trying to figure out your shoulder on your own, the things I'm about to talk about next might be important for you. I'm going to be opening up a free waitlist where I'll be releasing more resources and practical advice for people going through shoulder pain and looking to rebuild their shoulders. I'll also be opening up a limited one-on-one coaching spots, and people on that waitlist will be the first ones to be notified. If this sounds interesting at all to you, check out the description below where I'll have links for that information. And I look forward to speaking with you the next time.